That personal experience is how you're building these moments and stringing them together to actually build depth of how you're actually emotionally connected to that person. That's how you build trust. That's how you build, like just reciprocity. It's how you build loyalty.
Welcome to UpTech Report. This is our Applied Tech series. UpTech Report is sponsored by TerraLeap. Learn how to leverage the power of video at terraleap.io. Today, I'm very excited to be joined by my guest, Greg Segall, who's based in Boston, Massachusetts, CEO and founder of Alyce. Good to have you on, Greg.
Thank you. Very, very nice to have you here.
Absolutely. Now, Alyce is an AI-powered B2B gifting platform. And your whole focus, it seems to be trying to redefine direct mail, swag, and gifts with a scalable and hyper-personalized approach to account-based marketing. So for those out there in sales and marketing, this may be a platform that you're going to want to check out. Now on your site, Greg, it says, stop sending, start bonding. Help me understand, what was the problem that you guys saw at the very beginning and set out to solve?
I think one of the key things that you see even more exacerbated in COVID now is everyone is digitally fatigued. And when you start to see all the different ways that people are trying to interact in business, it's very much like email, LinkedIn messages, voicemail messages, what they call touches, right? Which is the creepiest word that you probably ever see in sales and marketing, right?
Touching me with the LinkedIn message. No, thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things that you start to notice is that there's this whole mentality of quantity over quality. Mm-hmm. And there's this whole element of, well, how do I just spread my message, as far as possible, rather than understanding that it's about depth and that there's actually a person sitting behind the communications that you're actually trying to have with somebody else, no matter where you are in the relationship. And then when you fundamentally look past the digital channels of communication, you start to recognize that there's all these investment points, meaning gifts, swag, events, rewards, incentives, everything that sort of fits into that. And that is the most emotive money and most emotive type of connection you can have with somebody. And again, with COVID, you can't do steak dinners or golf outings, which neither I would personally go to, but that's fine. Take me to a Red Sox game. There you go. And what you start to see is it's very, very difficult to be able to scale that. You can stick an email into a cadence or a sequence. But how do I say, hey, Alex, how do I actually invest in you on a one-to-one basis and do that at a scalable fashion when I'm trying to actually, carry on hundreds of relationships at a time or thousands of relationships at a time, or some companies, millions of relationships at a time.
And that's where technology should be helping, right? It should allow us to be able to scale our efforts, but I think maybe technology, often we start to automate the wrong thing and 100%. Just becomes more LinkedIn messages.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's, you have 15 years of where, go back 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like a 30 to 40% response rate on emails was amazing, right? And you're like, cool, I'm only pissing off 60% of the people. And now you're like, I get a 2% response rate or 3% response rate. And you're like, well, you're pissing off 97% of the people. So people have to take a fundamentally different approach right now. And when you look at all the different channels of communication and how you're actually stringing these together, that's what you have to be personal in all those different elements of that, so that the person feels like you actually care about them, right? It's an investment of time, which is very easy to, see like, Greg, I see that you're CEO of Alyce and blah, blah, blah. And do you want to check out my analytics platform? I'm like, I'm not a robot, I'm a human being, treat me like I'm a human being. So you actually show that you care.
Got it. So you saw the problem that in the space. Now, how did you solve it? What's your approach? In a nutshell.
So the approach was this, that when you look at how people have spent and invested into relationships over the last 100 years, it's always the same. It's about me, my brand, everything about me, not about you. What you start to fundamentally realize is that the approach that these companies are taking is fundamentally flawed, because everything's always about me. But again, going back to what we just talked about in terms of showing me that you care about myself, why do you care what that thing is that you're investing into the person, as long as you're creating this magical, what we call a personal experience? That personal experience is how you're building these moments and stringing them together to actually build depth of how you're actually emotionally connected to that person. That's how you build trust. That's how you build, just reciprocity. It's how you build loyalty in terms of your relationships with people. So it's about how can you build depth into that relationship over time as you're going there, instead of just, I'm trying to just get your attention. I'm trying to get your attention. I'm trying to get your attention. I'm trying to get your attention, which is how everybody treats it right now. So that was the fundamentals.
I've seen, success stories of really, I say energetic, but focused salespeople who go out of their way and they dig in, they do research on their prospects and they find out what they're interested in and they're finding ways to make them happy. But it's hard to empower your entire team to have that same gung-ho attitude to dig. So is that kind of where you have been focusing on using technology to help in that process?
100%. You want to make it as dead simple to have those investments happen and then make it all about the other person. That's the whole entire fundamental Alyce approach, rather than I've got to go figure out all this stuff and do all this research and blah, blah, blah. It's like Alyce just takes care of all that for you and then makes it dead easy for you to be able to actually send something to that person. Because again, end of the day, what do you care about what that thing is? If I get to choose, if you send me like an Ember coffee mug, which is a cool mug, but you're not sending me the thing, you're sending me the option for the thing. In exchange for a dog bowl or something for my dog, you just know, that's like, it's something now that I care about and I'm going to utilize, versus it being, like I don't drink coffee, for example, right? That's it. Or I have a 5-year-old daughter, so I'd exchange for Kiwi Crate or something that's like really meaningful to me. And now that I'm able to share that with my, my family and my friends.
Greg, just a quick distinction here. So what your whole platform does is it sends a link, or you're able to send a link to the end person, and they can see that and choose it or choose something else. You're not actually 100%. Mailing it or sending it to them right away.
Yeah, we should have started with that, right? Which is exactly that. The model and the approach is that could be a physical aspect of it, right? Because you could be sending a box, right? In terms of the way we do it, as like a sustainable box with a code and like a handwritten card inside of it, right? That they go through the digital experience, which is where the monetary investment piece is a part of that. And now they can either exchange for anything else on the marketplace, because we've highly curated things of what people actually really care about, especially with 5.5 years of data that's sitting behind that, or they can donate to a charity of their choice. So what happens is now it's all about the other person. Do they really care? So many people, especially earlier in COVID, there was such a high percentage of people donating to like Black Lives Matter and, the Red Cross and like all these, different food banks, all these different places. That's an amazing, it's an amazing place, because that really means something to that person, which automatically builds reciprocity, because it's about you, not about me. That's the key.
It always comes back to if a marketing team, sales team can build that rapport, saying I want to care what you care about. That helps them build that out. But I find, coming back to just the plain logistics of the platform itself, it is nice to get a physical thing. So it's like you still create that experience, but then it leads to an online connection. Did I get that right? You have the option to either just send a link or send something physical that comes back to the end digital.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think the physical thing has, because of COVID, has obviously taken a back seat in most cases there, because
people aren't at the office.
They're not at the office. It's super creepy asking ahead for somebody's home address.
Yeah, can I mail you something at home?
No. You're a 23-year-old BDR, and like I'm not giving my home address to send me some cupcakes or something, of which I don't eat as well. So thanks again for wasting my time and money on that. So the model for capturing the address happens after they've already started inside of the process. And then we extract that from the end customer, because you obviously don't want to have there's data privacy issues and stuff like that, especially globally when you start dealing with that. So yeah, and this is starting to come back right now, is this is the direct mail portion of this, but there's a physical aspect. We had these really beautiful boxes, whether they're art boxes by homeless artists, that were created that we'd send to people, whether it's sustainable, wooden boxes that people can use as keepsakes, to do whatever it is, right? It could even be just cards, handwritten cards that have the code on the back of it as well that you're writing off. So there is this whole, we call it the phygital world, right? This combination between the physical and the digital world. There's this element that's going to be coming back, as we enter this, but in a world that's wrought with digital stuff, it's like, how do you stand out? It's Alyce does the hard work to help make it feel more personal. That's the key, which ends up driving a lot more, because once that person gets immersed into the experience, they're automatically investing their time into that, and that's a big driver of behavior.
Now, your AI powered part that's where you effectively a BDR puts their contact in there, and you go onto all the social profiles and figure out what they're interested in. Is that how that works?
Yeah, 100%. So it's you put your information in, right? Your email address, your name, that's all we need, right? In terms of that. And then the system is able to find all the social, anything that's publicly available, honestly, in terms of that. And we have also behind the scenes, and we've done this since the beginning, because we recognize that if any of that information is wrong, there's a massive problem because like if you say, oh yeah, hey Alex, I saw you like the Red Sox, and you're like, I don't like the Red Sox or whatever it is, then there's a major issue. So we've always
Right.
had human checking behind, and validate, we call it the validation system. There's always been a human that's behind a lot of that because we're always trying to validate that information. But over time, we've built up this like, amazing system in terms of how we can actually go and find that information, extract the information, and then, be able to validate as we go through. But we've also learned that, the reality is like that works when you're deeper in the relationship. Earlier in the relationship, it's super creepy, right? So you have to be also, that's part of the prescriptive nature of how Alyce is used, is like you want to be able to use this as a leverage point to be able to ask good questions, on these things, rather than it being like, oh well, yeah, I'm gonna choose like a, something for your daughter Zoe because I know that. I'm like, you're a 23-year-old BDR that I've never met. How the hell do you know I have a daughter, in terms of this? And again, maybe for me because I'm on a lot of different podcasts and shows, I talk about her a lot, but that's a line you have to be very, very careful in terms of how you're balancing that.
We're in an interesting world where all this information is there and can be used, but it's almost as marketing sales teams, you have to knowing the new etiquette. Okay, at what point in a relationship are you? Does it make sense for you to be able to use that data? I mean, it's accessible, and platforms now can be able to pull it. But your approach is you have like different options so that you can say, okay, you can like if someone's not yet that relationship, how would they do it? Would they just send a link and say, here's yeah, I'd like to send you something, or you just
so you have to think about this in terms of this is where the beauty of the Alyce model works, because I might say, hey, I need to pick me up. Again, I don't drink coffee, but imagine using this, right? Like, I need to pick me up. Here's an Ember coffee mug because I thought you might like something like this, so that it sets you up on that stuff. But the person could choose something else, right? Like I wouldn't choose that. So you start to relate it to yourself, and that's another way to actually generate a personal connection with somebody. So over time, this, and it's not difficult, and it could be the same thing, like, but it still feels personal because it's coming from you. Hey, when I was traveling, or hey, when travel comes back, here's this nice custom map that I always use to remember my favorite place. Like, knowing that you can't travel right now, wouldn't it be nice for you to do that? You know what I mean? Like there's ways of being able to drive that. It feels natural to me, which makes it natural to them because there's some sort of a connection that might be there, shows that you actually care, and it's a way for you to be able to scale that authenticity and use that as a leverage point to actually be able to give somebody something that they actually want. So it's not coming across as fake, because that's the worst thing is you're like, I'm just going to go blast off 8,000 Amazon gift cards, to these specific people. It's like, cool. Make it relevant to me, make it relatable to me, and that's the fundamental differentiation in terms of how you think about that and how you can scale that.
Now, what's your business model? Like, what is
SaaS? We're a SaaS business.
So
we're
they're
SaaS
just
business, yeah.
Okay, so it's just people can sign up and it's their flat fee, and then they have access to this platform.
Yep, and then they pay for the gifts, or they pay for the swag, they pay for the things that are sitting behind it, as well. That's there, but it's a super simple model, right? We have the benefits of some transactional revenue that comes out of that, as well as SaaS revenue, but that's dependent on the relationships and the merchants and stuff that we have on the back end. That's there, but we try and make that as fair as possible for our customers, and it also simplifies the way that they're tracking and doing a lot of the reporting and governance and stuff around that too.
Over time, what you've done is you built an ecosystem of partners effectively that have all these swag. Is it only just like these smaller items, or is it there like the regular items? Like what balance
it's everything. Yeah, it's not like we have local vendors, but a majority of the stuff, if you look at the popular things, are like Yeti mugs, or it's DoorDash gift cards, or Grubhub gift cards, or whatever it might be. That's there, or the experience, some of the experience things that we have on there in terms of like virtual experience stuff that we have on the platform as well. Like there's some really nice, combinations of things, but we built those relationships starting 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we've built these tight connections with these merchants that have the plethora of all these different things across all different categories, from sort of day one, and it's constantly evolving every day. When we're curating new things daily in terms of how that catalog continues to change, because you might have like Allbirds wasn't on there 2 years ago, now they're on there. Like there's what's popular and what are people looking for and asking for, and that's a big play there.
You're spending the energy of curating and knowing what are the right gifts that people would want to, and again, the idea is that when someone gets on there, it's a curated experience for the end person who actually can choose the gifts based on what they're interested in. Your target market, is it a certain size B2B organization that best kind of fits for you guys?
Yeah, we're an enterprise organization, so like we say, it's like sort of the mid-market to enterprise is really the big place for us, in terms of that. So like, a 20-person company is just, it's too expensive, for them in terms of that cost, that's there. So we focus much more heavily on how to, again, it's scaling authenticity. How do you do that in these large organizations where it's a bigger problem than, a smaller organization who's either just getting off the ground or whatnot? And it's not because we're not empathetic to that, but you have to be focused as a business in order to like, where are you targeting and where are you actually going after? What type of companies you're going after and what problems are you solving for them? And we just know that efficiency and the problems as you go to scale, as you get to 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, 100,000 people is very different than when you're 10 or 20 or 50 people, type of organizations.
You're going to make those 10 and 20 people sad, because I bet if they were listening to this right now, they'd be like, oh, yes, this sounds great. But it's knowing where it fits. And for the larger enterprises, it's difficult to scale because you can't hire the type of people that can just do this on themselves. You need a platform that can help scale the entire effort. What can you share as far as your roadmap of where you're headed, features that are coming in that you're excited about and you can share?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of things that are on the horizon for this year. So I'll keep some of it behind the scenes, in terms of where we're going. But I think just the overall offering and the overall experience is going to continue to evolve, as you can probably imagine, especially as COVID is hitting. So we're working a lot on how do we actually continue to improve and it's not improving, it's just like evolving the experience based on the times, and understanding like the 50-50 work from home, work from the office, and making sure that experience is really tight. That's there as well. And, a lot more on the actual, the marketplace and the experience and the stuff that we're doing in terms of the spend categories and stuff that we're really targeting as well, to be able to help broaden those moments that you're creating with people as they're going on that journey, as it plays into it. Not trying to be like amorphous here, but like that should give you an idea as to like there's a clear place, in terms of where you think about you investing into relationships, and you can imagine, where we're heading in terms of some of those places, that are there as well. And then obviously we invested very heavily into the data science side of things, and how we use that as a way to actually help scale and build, a lot of efficiency gains and intelligence, as things continue to grow too.
I imagine that there's a duality here that you're having to pay attention to. One is the current events and trends when it comes to experiences and gifts and what people want. At the same side, the technology side, the tech stack, that when people are experiencing it, it truly is customized and it has that intentionality behind it. So kind of closing here, words of advice or tips to the marketers or sales folks out there that are in this world and they're trying to scale their efforts. They want to use technology, but what would you just want to share with them?
The key fundamentals, again, having, so many friends in marketing and sales, now, and obviously, a large number of customers, there's a spectrum that folks go on when you're in marketing and sales. It's the easy way out, like the attention grabbing side of things, which unfortunately is where most marketing and sales right now is still balanced on. And that's not their fault. It's just like behavior, habits, and systems that are in place that don't allow them to scale the quality over the quantity that's there. But you don't have to go do it overnight. You just have to be thinking about how do you start injecting some of those quality moments into the quantity, cycles that you're actually building in terms of these individual relationships. And the other side of it too, which is like you're starting to see a lot of this, and this has been something we've been preaching for now almost 5 years, but like it's finally starting to come up in LinkedIn a lot more, where you're starting to see treat people like human beings. It's about quality. Stop, blasting, blah, 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 whatever it is. And you're starting to see a lot of the more progressive marketers, and a lot of more of our progressive customers thinking about how to inject this in and starting to use this as an approach, across the board. Because what ends up happening is you might be optimizing on percentages of points, or points of percentages, you know what I mean? If you really think about it, like I'm going to go from 1.5 to 1.7, it's going to make this massive difference. But the reality is you're still cannibalizing a lot of the efforts that are happening downstream in order to get short-term gains. When you start thinking about injecting some of the quality moments and quality investments you can make in terms of how you change some of that approach, which is where we have playbooks and we talk with our customers and we sort of, are very consultative with how we think about that, you can get, exponentially more, improvement in terms of that, where it's not just about short-term gains, it's actually building towards a longer-term approach and gain here. Again, it's also our difference between like just run a very short-term campaign that's just like, quick, hit to hopefully make it, where now you're thinking quarterly and you're like, that's it, versus thinking about a program that's constantly evolving and you're constantly optimizing as it goes. which has a lot more creativeness down the road. It might not have as much short-term gains, which in a lot of cases it does actually for our customers, but we still always talk about the long-term gains, which again is why it's a SaaS platform. You're investing in something that is accretive over time and is building an approach and a method, that these folks are using because they believe that it is quality over quantity at the end of the game there.
You're saying going from fractional changes to double-digit changes.
100%. Yeah. You start to see what happens with our customers. I mean, it's mind-blowing because in like the small injections, and then the customers that really buy into it and then start to inject it all throughout all the different portions of their relationships that they're building. I mean, it's massive gains. You go from 1 to 2, 3% to like 10, 20, 30, 40%, in terms of like the responses and the changes in behaviors, that they're actually trying to get at, because it's common sense in terms of where the market is heading. The problem again is it's very hard to get your mentality around that and also to scale. That is everything that we're working towards with our customers, is like learning how are we scaling that authenticity? How are we scaling those moments, with those folks? Because that's the wave of the future. Everything else is going to be all automated out. You're gonna know. You don't even have to think about what like 6sense and Terminus and Demandbase are doing right now. They're like telling you who you should actually target. Well, cool. They did the hard part in terms of figuring those things out. But how are you engaging? Which is where the real trust in, and the buyer's journey comes into play, especially as humans become less and less a part of the buying process, right? So that's a really important thing to understand, is like that's only going to get heightened as time goes on.
Scaling authenticity. That's a powerful focus and a future, which in some ways seems counterintuitive, but it is where it is possible, and that's where you guys are focused. I'm excited about the future that you paint. I think everyone's feeling it, and so it's going to be intriguing to learn more. For those that want to hear more, though, about Greg's story of how Alyce began, stick around for part 2 of our discussion on our Founder's Journey series. And for those mid-market enterprise organizations that want to dig into this, you can go over to alyce.com, ALYCE, and request a demo and learn more. They can go over and do that, right, Greg?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Get a gift, so it'll be fun. You can see the experience yourself and go.
I bet you.
My team's gonna be super happy about that one. But yes, that's the way we work. I mean, it's like you want to experience it. We want to live and breathe and embody the way that we want people to be treated. Like that's the entire ethos of what we need to be able to do. That's scaling authenticity, right?
I love it. Thank you so much, Greg. And everyone, stick around for part 2 of our discussion, and we'll see you on the next episode of UpTech Report. Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.